Hey everyone, what's going on? We're going to go ahead and get started with part 2 of the markets. This is going to be the researching part. So in part 1, we went over the agencies like the NSCC, the OCC, the DTC, FINRA, you name it. All the big dogs, the ones that make the rules and oversee that the rules are being created in an efficient, quote, manner, unquote. So let's go ahead and take a look at researching. So now you know who runs the show. Well, how do you go about finding out what all this stuff means? It's a very complex system. Where does one begin to look for the truth when it comes to markets? Well, I can tell you one thing, not social media. Not social media. And I'm going to give a few reasons. I'm not going to get too much into it. If you've watched me before, you're very aware that I'm very anti-social media because of the misinformation that goes on. So where do you get started? Not social media. With such a complex system, where does one start? I know it's easiest to go online and search for people that want the same things that you do and who are looking for the same answers you are. However, most people find them in the wrong places because, I don't know if you knew this, but Reddit, and this is a huge red flag in my opinion, in 2017, Jessica Ashu, who is now the first and only ever senior director of policy at Reddit. Jessica Ashu, first ever director of policy, previous deputy director to the Middle East Strategy Task Force, is in control of Reddit. So that is just something I'm going to leave out there. But yeah, I mean, clear as day, the data shows that social media was taken over by the industry to rope in all of the retail traders in January 2021 to get them all distracted and all virtue signaling and all group thinking about the same incorrect information. And hey, I was one of those people, so I'm not dogging on anybody that fell for it. Everyone fell for it, including myself. You just have to realize when it's time to shake it off and realize that there's bigger things at work than a made-up term created by, likely, the policy content directors of Reddit. What about YouTube? What about Twitter? It is my goal that all of you who watch this channel do not rely on me in the future, because I'm trying to set you up with the tools that you need to be able to carry on your own and not get swindled by anybody online, because that's what online is for. It's for people who don't want to work. They go online, they create some scheme, and luckily the scheme this time around was created for them in that of AMC and GME. If you were a YouTuber, all you had to do was make a video with the word AMC in it and your views skyrocketed. That's just a fact of 2021. And with that fact comes negative incentivized behavior from the content creators that we all witnessed. So where do you start then? Well, for filings, we're going to go ahead and start with the Federal Register. And by the way, I'm going to link every single piece of data that I'm presenting here down below in the description below. I'm going to erase all the Discord promotion stuff and just leave the link, so it's going to be easy for you to find. So that way you're going to be able to access this stuff whenever you need it. So anything rules related, anything filing related, rules related, anything like that is going to come from the Fed Register or the DTC website. It can show up on one of these two places first. Typically it is the Federal Register, but it's a good rule of practice to go ahead and check both just to be sure you didn't miss anything. Because in today's markets, you do not want to miss anything. And sitting on social media all day, hoping and praying for something that's never going to happen is a good way to waste time and not learn anything. So let's go ahead and move on. So this is what the Federal Register looks like when you actually get into the part where the data is. You see documents on public inspection is going to be at the top, and then recent filings will be just below that. This is very important. This is public inspection for a reason. All of those 16 exchanges that we talked about in video 1, those are going to be, all of those exchanges will make their rules and they will be published here to public inspection. And if you go look, it actually provides you an average page view per filing here. The average views is 14. So just put that into perspective. This is the real market information right here that no one reads, but everyone's reading Twitter posts and Reddit posts and watching YouTube videos where no one of the sort knows remotely anything close to what they're talking about. As far as the DTC website, you're going to be able to see the 3 major subsidiaries of the DTCC, which is the parent company. So the DTC website will show you the DTC, the FICC, and the NSCC filings, which are the real big agencies in the market. Now, this right side column here, if you see federal release, what that's saying is that this is the date that it was published in the Federal Register, and if it was an approval, then it should be implemented after you see this show up right here. Now, I'm just going to go through the rest of this real quick. This is going to be kind of a shorter video for this, but I'm just going to go through data that you're going to want to bookmark. Okay, you're going to want repo data from the Fed Reserve. That's very important. And if you don't know what the repo is, we're going to get into that later. So just hang on to that thought. You're going to want off-exchange short volume from FINRA. This is short volume that specifically goes through the dark pool and is not on exchange. You're going to want U.S. Treasury data to make sure the U.S. Treasury balance and all that stuff is in check. It's a good thing to check daily. This is the daily Treasury statement from fiscal data, treasury.gov. And all of this data that I'm showing you is all source data, not from any YouTuber, Redditor, anything like that. This is straight from the agencies that we talked about in the first video. You're also going to want money market fund data. This is the counterparties to the repo. You got your Fidelity, Vanguard, JP Morgan, BlackRock, Federated, Goldman Sachs, Dreyfus, Schwab, Morgan Stanley, Allspring Fund, State Street, Northern Trust, you know, all the big players. This is the repo transaction actual data that you can see. And it's funny because if you actually look at this end of the data and look at the other end in their actual monthly holdings report that they're required to file by statute from the SEC, you'll notice that you can see both ends of the repo transactions, one here and one in their monthly report. So this is definitely a key piece of data you'll want, money market fund data provided by the Office of Financial Research. You're also going to want the FINRA's alternative trading system and over-the-counter data, which is published as of this year. There's an actual rule called the OTC transparency rule that was passed recently. Now FINRA is required to display the alternative trading system data, statistics, block trades, and over-the-counter as well. You are also going to want the SEC Edgar link, because this is where you'll go to verify that Fintel is accurate. Now, I understand Fintel is more convenient to use than SEC Edgar, but Fintel does come with metrics that are useless, like the average price bought per share. They don't know that because it's not in SEC Edgar. They pull their data straight from here, and then they repackage it and sell it to retailers. But you can get the gist of what you're looking for in Fintel from SEC Edgar, and then some, because you actually get voting rights with SEC Edgar. Fintel is good for finding recent 13F filings. That is the only thing it's good for. So that is the only thing I like to use it for. And their NYSE reported short interest is okay. Because remember, a good rule of thumb to keep in mind here, if you want to navigate these markets correctly, accurately, and not get swindled, is if you didn't see it with your own eyes, verify it with your own eyes first before believing it. Because there's so many people out there that want to take advantage of you, your time, to make a quick buck like we saw in 2021. Except in 2021, it wasn't a quick buck. These people got paid 6 figures to talk about absolutely nothing. You're also going to want the CBOE market share charts. Now, those 16 exchanges that we went over in video 1, you're going to be able to actually compare volume from all of those exchanges to see just how much they're getting versus the ADF, which is the off-exchange dark pool, and things like that. And you can also check each different tape. We're going to go into tapes more later on. This is more for you to just have the basic foundation for your research moving forward. We're going to get into all this stuff. I'm going to try to explain all of it later on. We're just getting started right now. But you definitely want the CBOE market share graphs. Next, not a lot of people even know about this one, but you're going to want the index of, basically it's the master data file for the New York Stock Exchange and all of its subsidiary exchanges data sets. You got short data, tick pilot data, open book data, corporate actions data, Chicago symbol mapping, ARCA symbol mapping, national symbol mapping, and then you got your short interest consolidated, and you have your limit up, limit down circuit breakers. You have your SSR list. All of that stuff can come straight from here, and it even has dates when it's updated. So a lot of this stuff is daily. So again, real-time data, historical data, consolidated short interest, symbol mapping, tick pilot, and short volume data will all be available from this website. You're also going to want systematic internalizer data. And this is provided by the ESMA, which is the regulators over in Europe. Now, why these exist? I'm going to get into that real quick. Systematic internalizers basically are the workaround for dark pools. So in Europe, they filed to cap dark pools. They put a volume cap on dark pools, much like the SEC is trying to do with regulation NMS here in the United States. But they put a cap on dark pools. Then they drafted the MiFID2 rules, which the ESMA didn't read. And now the systematic internalizer data is basically a workaround for dark pools. The only difference is that they're required to use their own capital. But in Europe, guess what? You're allowed to rehypothecate assets with unlimited leverage, which is exactly why Goldman Sachs opened their rehypothecation center in Europe specifically last year in 2021. So, and this will show you equities, bonds, and non-equities, which conveniently enough for them is not going to be available until November of this year. It was actually not published for the first time since I've been watching this month. Next, you're going to want your standard U.S. economy and bond data. You're going to get your GDP, labor, prices, health, money, trade, government, business, consumer, housing, and taxes, and climate. All this stuff is relevant to markets, and you're going to want to make sure you look at all this stuff. Because, again, how many times have you seen it? The Fed comes out for a major economic data delivery day, and shit tanks. That's where money can be made. You're also going to want, this is a newer data set. This is securities lending data from Europe. They tend to pass regulations a little bit sooner than the United States side. The OFR, the same company that I showed data from, the reverse repo Counterparties, is actually going to be releasing their own version of securities lending data coming out hopefully before the end of this year. But you're going to be able to get your lendable data sets here on loan amounts and things like that. Good to always gauge the amount of securities lending that's going on in the current markets because it's a big facet of the market. Next, if you're trading options, you definitely can't go without the Options Clearing Corporation data. Now, the data you can expect to find here, there's quite a bit of it. They have batch query, which is awesome. You can actually show and search for when options were written. You have directory of listed products. You have the equity special settlements, flex reports, future settlement prices, new listings, options on futures, contrary reports, option quotes, penny program, position limits, you name it. You got a lot of information here at the OCC website. So you definitely want to make sure that you get that and familiarize yourself with this. Now, you never hear any of this stuff being talked about on social media because you have to work to understand some of this stuff. Now, is it hard work? No, I'm retarded and I understand this stuff now after a lot of work. Some of you may learn it faster than I did. I feel like I took a long time to learn some of this stuff because I learn at a little bit of a slower pace than a lot of people. But when I do learn something, I usually am pretty passionate about it, especially these markets. Now, the reason social media never uses any of this data, never talks about any of this data, is because they never started on the right foot. Everyone that became an ape without asking to be an ape. I remember it like it was yesterday. My first day trading, I bought AMC at $19 and it started tanking. I didn't know what to do. I searched online and then immediately found a bunch of AMC results. Everyone else was doing the same thing I was, so I was like, fuck it, I'll hold like everyone else. But what I didn't know is that the internet was already set up for those results to be found before I even considered buying AMC. That's the thing you have to realize. Now, again, you're going to get feelings, you're going to get emotions. That's gifted. That's granted. But what you're not going to get is you're not going to get rich from doing absolutely nothing or doing something that everyone else is doing. When's the last time you've seen everyone get rich? Never. When is the last time you've seen everyone be right about something? Never. So the good rule and key to take away from this video is the data is out there for you to learn this stuff. The resources is out there for you to learn this stuff. So why did they put all their focus on social media? So you would be distracted, so you couldn't analyze these effed up markets and realize that there is an opportunity to exploit markets in ways that have never been exploited before, because you add on the data, and on top of that, you add on the new brokerage apps and tools that we have within those apps, options, paper trading, all that stuff, and you have more ways than ever to find yourself an edge in this market, and social media is taking that away from you. Those people on social media that are feeding you nonsense are taking that away from you, and it's really sad to see that happen. I thought more people would have stepped up and researched during this time, but, Reddit started out good, or it's seemingly so, and then slowly but surely taken over by Purple Donuts and the hype mind narrative. So again, if you want to be successful trading or you want to make money trading, you have to learn the game. It works a certain way. It's always worked a certain way. It evolves. It's always going to be evolving. The second you stop watching markets and call yourself an expert, I don't want anything to do with you, because the markets change so rapidly. You're not an expert if you stop. You're complacent. And this market has no room for complacency. That's how to research, or where to get started at least. Hopefully that'll build a good foundation. I'll link all this below, and I hope this helps somebody.